Later today, Albuquerque City Council is set to talk about what is becoming a very controversial issue involving your money. Right now, the city attorney can go after anyone who loses a lawsuit against the city to try to get court costs and the attorney's fees back. But some councilors want to change the rules and force the city attorney to run any legal action by them first. The catalyst for all this, the Mary Hahn lawsuit. You might remember civil rights attorney Mary Hahn died from carbon monoxide poisoning in 2010. Police ruled it a suicide, but her family says it was murder and that Albuquerque police botched the investigation. The family sued and lost, but is now appealing. And now the city attorney is asking her family for these fees. Some councilors do not like this idea, but others do.
We want to make sure that if people sue the city and they lose, that there's some risk involved. Because otherwise, everyone could sue the city for any reason or for no reason, and we shouldn't want that.
I think this is such an important issue to the citizens of our community, especially if they are looking to file a lawsuit against the city of Albuquerque, that they are not in fear that they could be sued if their lawsuit doesn't prevail.
The City Council plans to talk specifically about the Mary Hahn lawsuit tonight and the idea to get these attorneys' fees back from others. That meeting starts at 5.
Thousands of Albuquerque city workers won't be too happy after they found out a judge ruled that the city must roll back the pay raises it recently gave workers. On Saturday, the district court judge ruled that Mayor R.J. Berry illegally gave 3% increases for many employees, including security, clerical workers, and bus drivers. The mayor decided to impose his own terms after the city and the union were unable to strike a deal for 4 years. But the union, not happy about some of the changes the city made, took the city to court. The judge ruled that the city and the union must now go into mediation.
Well, police are still on the hunt for the guy who robbed a game store and a Wex restaurant. Police say Robert Pacheco used a gun in both robberies. They caught him, then he got out of jail but had to wear an electronic ankle bracelet to keep track of him. Police say he cut it off when they tried to arrest him last week. They say he tried to ram a cop car and led officers on a chase. If you know where Pacheco is, police would like to hear from you. It looks like they're offering a $1,000 reward. And the man police say robbed a number of stores in Rio Rancho is now behind bars. Rio Rancho police say Wayne Allen Decker is the man in these surveillance pictures using a gun to hold up not just one but 2 businesses just days apart. Police say on Saturday, workers at this Walgreens called 911 saying there was a suspicious man in the store. Police say it was Decker. Officers noticed he looked a lot like the man wanted for 2 armed robberies, one at a KFC on Southern and another at a GameStop store that's on Unser. Police say Decker had a baseball bat in his pants and confessed to the robberies.
Some good news for those who had contact with the first Ebola patient diagnosed here in the U.S. Their quarantine is now over. Confined to their homes, the family members of Thomas Eric Duncan are now free after being kept under armed guard in quarantine for 21 days. Ebola is no longer a threat for the nearly 50 others who had contact with the Dallas man. Now the government is ramping up its efforts to respond to the fight of keeping that virus from spreading. Now, it is forming a military support team to assist civilian medical staff in the U.S. The CDC is also finalizing strict new guidelines for healthcare workers.
They're going to be much more stringent in the sense of instructions about what you really need to do.
New guidelines are expected to set firm standards regarding protective bodysuits and removal, disinfection, and supervision. 2 Dallas nurses who contracted Ebola while caring for Duncan are now in stable condition. One New Mexico health official says that the state is likely to handle the Ebola virus better than other communities if we were to ever get it. Now, Dr. Michael Landon, an epidemiologist, says sometimes smaller is better, referring to the size of our healthcare community. He says New Mexico hospitals are all following CDC guidelines as well as tailoring their own plans to meet their own needs. He says our state can communicate easier than other state healthcare communities.
We also have a smaller healthcare provider community that's relatively well coordinated.
Last week, Christus St. Vincent Hospital in Santa Fe held a person in isolation suspected of having Ebola symptoms. Turns out that person did not have Ebola.
And a little bit of good news with Ebola is just in. The World Health Organization, the WHO, says Nigeria is now Ebola-free. We'll have more on that on CBS This Morning coming up at 7 o'clock. Now, a researcher at UNM is joining the race to perfect the vaccine for Ebola. Dr. Stephen Bradfute says experimental vaccines have worked on animals, and now he and other researchers are getting ready for human trials.
There's a lot of good work that's being done, and there's a lot of collaboration and a lot of independent ideas. So different people have different takes on what's going to work, and so everyone's just right now trying to race and see what we can do about this.
Dr. Bradfute also says the vaccine will probably take at least a couple of years to develop. Liz.
New information out this morning shows an unfortunate trend. New Mexico children are suffering repeated abuse or neglect even after intervention by the Department of Children, Youth and Families. Officials with the department say more than 11 out of 100 kids who were found by CYFD to be maltreated were abused again within 6 months. That's a jump of nearly 50% in 2 years. CYFD says it still has a large number of job vacancies despite recent wage hikes.
Well, 506, a volunteer security guard who lost his home is now finally getting another place of his own. For the past few years, Sonny Hodge was watching over the First Baptist Church on the corner of Central and Broadway near downtown Albuquerque to make sure nobody broke into the church and Noonday Ministries there. Well, Hodge has a brain injury and he really can't work a lot. Then UNM bought the church for an innovation project. And unfortunately, Sonny lost his home. So he stayed with Noonday Ministries director, and together, along with UNM, they raised enough money to get Sonny his own place.
What we're going to do with that $5,000 is we're either going to buy an RV or a travel trailer or help Sonny get into an apartment close to the new Noonday building, and so he can continue doing that.
The old church is being used for Innovate ABQ, a project to help create startup businesses and revitalize downtown Albuquerque. Remember, we talked with Sonny Hodge and the pastor there on Tu Casa this morning over on Tu Casa, and so great that they were able to get him a home.
Yeah, and he's such a great guy. Glad he has a place to call home now.
And they say he's probably scared off a number of potential thieves who
Sure.
are going in there and breaking into the place.
Doing a good deed.